If you love Paul Harvey stories and the rest of the story, subscribe now. Tony walked into the architect's office. He had an appointment, he told the receptionist. The woman glanced up, then down at her appointment book. Perhaps later, she told Tony, because her employer was busy right now. When Tony turned to leave, a handsome, lively-eyed, broad-backed man strode into the office. The boy seized the opportunity. "I came to see you, sir," he said. "I want to be an architect just like you." The man smiled. He said he hoped the young visitor had higher aspirations than that. And then, with a wave of his hand, he beckoned to Tony to follow him. The architect's private office was a cluster of mock-ups and half-completed drawings. Tony had brought a portfolio, which he opened eagerly for his host. Tony was a junior in high school, he explained, and his plans for a supermarket had won first prize in a contest there. As Tony turned pages, the architect arched an eyebrow. "Wow, that design was a good one," he said, and after a moment the man stared straight into the face of his youngest visitor. "Why do you want to be an architect?" Well, Tony could see the gentleman wanted an unvarnished answer, so he gave it. He said exactly what he felt. He said human beings live wrong. They were not meant to live in boxes. It's enough that we're going to spend eternity in a box. Why do they want to do the same thing with their lives? The architect noted approvingly. With a philosophy like that, Tony just might grow into one of the greats. However, there was one thing that would stand in the boy's way, one thing that would surely prevent him from selling his ideas to prospective clients, his speech impediment. Tony was astonished. He'd never been aware of such a problem, he declared, and the architect asked Tony to open his mouth and lift his tongue. When the boy did, the man appeared inside, just as he had suspected. Tony had excellent teeth, but the piece of skin beneath his tongue, something called the frenulum, was too thick. It was preventing him from enunciating clearly. It was making him literally tongue-tied. "Being an embedded draftsman is not enough," said the architect. "Tony must first learn to be an effective communicator. He must see a doctor and get that connective tissue cut. And then he could go somewhere and learn to speak. And then he must return and become the architect's student." Well, Tony was overjoyed. He went out, had the operation. Just as the architect told him, it worked. The surgery untied his tongue. In fact, his tongue flopped around so freely in his mouth that he could scarcely control it. So Tony opened the yellow pages in search of a voice teacher. He found an ad for a school run by a former actress named Catherine Hamill. He went there, told Miss Hamill he could not afford tuition, but he'd be glad to help do janitorial work in exchange for elocution lessons, and she agreed. In time, Tony was ready to return to the architect's office to begin his apprenticeship, which he never did. He never did, for after coaching at Miss Hamill's school, Tony simply became too good at speaking to consider a career in anything else. A bright future had awaited him in the office of an architect, the man who untied Tony's tongue, the great Frank Lloyd Wright. And yet instead Tony took that new voice and shared it with all of us, as the Academy Award-winning actor Anthony Quinn. Now you know the rest of the story.